Hello everyone and welcome to this free webinar on ATLAS.ti for Mac. My name is Ivana Radovojevich and I'm the Project Coordinator and Client Relations Manager for ATLAS.ti in our Europe office. So what we're going to see today is an introduction and global overview of ATLAS.ti for Mac. And we're going to see how the software looks, how it works, and how we can begin a project using ATLAS.ti and then carry out our analysis. So I've also put up here our contact information, and I invite everyone to take note of it. So if you ever have any questions regarding anything with ATLAS.ti, please never hesitate in sending us an email or giving us a call, and we'll always be happy to help. Now, in addition to this, after seeing today's webinar, if you do decide to purchase ATLAS.ti, all of you can count on a 10% discount coupon. All you have to do is send me an email and let me know that you're going to go ahead and buy ATLAS.ti, and I'm more than happy to send you that 10% discount coupon. So let's go ahead and begin by saying, what is ATLAS.ti? So that we're all starting on the same page here today. Well, ATLAS.ti is a computer-assisted qualitative data analysis software. In other words, this is a software that facilitates the qualitative analysis of any unstructured and semi-structured data. So as we talked about interview transcriptions or any kind of textual or graphic data, all of that can be analyzed in ATLAS.ti so that we can identify the themes, patterns, and meanings across all of the information. And of course, we can analyze a great variety of sources of information with ATLAS.ti. So we can have textual data, such as interview transcriptions, but these can also be articles if we're using it for our literature review as well. And then, of course, aside from textual data, we can import images, audio files, video files, Google Earth maps. All of these can be imported into the same ATLAS.ti project so that you can identify the emerging themes and overarching trends. And where does ATLAS.ti come from? Well, the first version was developed in the Technical University of Berlin in 1989. And indeed, our headquarters today is in Berlin, but we now also count on offices and users all around the world. So ATLAS.ti has been on the commercial market for well over 20 years now. And today we count on ATLAS.ti for Mac and ATLAS.ti for Windows. Now, if you also have a tablet and you like to work when you're on the go or on the move, you'll find on our website a free ATLAS.ti app so that you can download ATLAS.ti onto your Android or iPad tablet and then also continue analyzing your data from there. Now, just a little bit of information on the different kinds of licenses that you'll find with ATLAS.ti if you do decide to purchase the software. So first and foremost, always when it comes to ATLAS.ti, you're going to receive the full software in one go. So there's no hidden functionalities or extra costs that come along the line. It'll just be a one-time payment and you'll have the full software. And we offer perpetual or lifetime licenses for individual and group users. Now for you students out there, you can purchase ATLAS.ti at a significantly reduced cost, and you can get this for a period of 6 months or 2 years. If anyone is interested in getting 5 or more licenses at a time, you'll also see that you have the option to lease the licenses, or to pay for each year that you want to use ATLAS.ti. Now, for any of these different types of licenses, remember that you can count on that 10% discount coupon. So if you do decide to purchase it, just send me an email, and I'd be happy to send that right along. Now, what I'd like to emphasize in particular here is our free trial version. Now, this is a perpetual trial version, meaning that there's no time limit on it. The only limitation is in the size of the project that you can create, but it certainly offers a great way to get to know ATLAS.ti, download it onto your computer, import your own data, and test it out for yourself, and to see if it suits your own research needs. And of course, you can find more information on all of these on our website. In addition to this, you'll also find on our website a great variety of learning resources that we have to offer. If you and your group of colleagues, researchers, or students would like to learn more about ATLAS.ti, you can request a free on-demand group webinar. So you can request this through our website and then just let us know what parts of ATLAS.ti do you want to learn more about, or what kind of data are you focusing on. And then we will prepare a 1-hour online presentation for you and your group, and we'd be happy to provide this service for you. Aside from this, you can also learn ATLAS.ti in even more depth by attending any of our premium trainings. So we offer online and face-to-face trainings, And with these, we go into much more depth with ATLAS.ti, and we also look at concepts of qualitative methodology and to see how that can inform our use of the software. And upon completing any of our premium courses, you'll also receive an official ATLAS.ti certificate. And so then aside from the trainings as a way to learn about ATLAS.ti, you can also always count on the variety of resources that are always available on the website. So we have the full manual, quick tours, a research blog, a user forum, a library of additional resources. And in particular, what I'd like to point out are our video tutorials. So we have a video tutorial explaining each specific feature of the software. And this is a great way to revise how to use ATLAS.ti or to see the different functions that the software offers. And so you can, of course, find all this information on our website so you can continue learning more about ATLAS.ti. But if you ever do have any questions or doubts, you can always count on our free perpetual support. Just give us a call or send us an email, and we'll always be here to help. Now, I like to show this picture because this is probably a familiar image for anyone who's ever analyzed any text manually before. And so what do? Well, we go through reading the text and we underline the important pieces of information or the bits that capture our attention, something that can help answer our research question. We write our notes in the margin area along the side, and perhaps we're already drawing connections across all our different ideas here. And of course, this is what the qualitative analysis process consists of. But as we can see here, when we work on just pen and paper, this can quite easily become quite a big mess. And that's exactly where ATLAS.ti comes in. This tool will help us throughout the entire research process. So from the very beginning of setting up your project and organizing all of your data, to actually analyzing all of your data in depth, and then of course finally generating your own rigorous results. So ATLAS.ti will accompany you throughout this entire process, and it'll help you stay organized and keep track of things. And so you won't ever have to worry about which page was it that you had that one quotation, or where did you have those notes written. You'll always be able to quickly and easily recuperate your information through ATLAS.ti. So what we'll see today is that ATLAS.ti is a powerful software that's easy to use and easy to learn, so that we spend less time learning how to use the software and more time actually analyzing our data. With ATLAS.ti, we'll stay close to the data and always within the full context of our qualitative data, so that we can reveal the meanings and relationships across everything. In other words, ATLAS.ti is the ideal tool for those who want to see the big picture, but at the same time appreciate the finer details of their work. And so with that, let's go ahead and take a look at ATLAS.ti for Mac. So here I have opened the main welcome screen of ATLAS.ti for Mac. And from here we see we have the option to create a brand new project or import an already existing project. Along the right-hand side, ATLAS.ti gives us a list of all of the projects that have been previously opened on this computer. So for the purpose of today, I'm going to use a project that we already have analyzed so that we can see how this will look in ATLAS.ti. In this project, we're investigating the effects of, or the relationship between children and happiness, and how having children can affect parents' happiness. And this is a sample project, meaning that you can find the same project on our website, and so you can also download it and open it on your own computer if you'd like to explore it and see how it looks for yourself, or if you would just like a safe space in which you can experiment with ATLAS.ti. And so here we are in ATLAS.ti for Mac. We see along the top we have all of the main menus organized as per usual with any other software. Along the left-hand side, we have the Project Explorer panel. And from this panel, we can directly see and access any part of our project. So up here, we have different tabs where we can navigate through the different parts of the project. And so the first one here that we have selected is the Documents tab. So we can see all of the documents here. Now, a document in ATLAS.ti is simply any source of information that we're going to be analyzing. So a document can be an article, if we're also analyzing articles for our literature review. It can also be interview transcriptions. It can be responses to an open-ended survey, as we have in this example. But documents can also be video files, audio files, and images. So all of these would be imported into ATLAS.ti as a document. You can add any documents to your project just by clicking on the plus button up here in the top left-hand corner and import documents. So now that we have the documents added here, well, we can see actually, before we move on, every time we open a document, ATLAS.ti loads it in the main working space, and it's opened each document as a separate tab so that we can easily navigate throughout all the things that we have just opened here. Now I'm going to go ahead and close everything, and let's start with an article that we don't have very analyzed so that we can see how do we actually conduct our analysis in ATLAS.ti. So I've opened an article here, and I'm ready to begin reading it now. And so as we read our article or our interview transcriptions, whenever we find something that's important or interesting, some piece of information that we want to save, we're going to save a quotation. In other words, all we have to do is highlight that segment of the text that we want to save here, and then right-click or click with 2 fingers in the Mac, and then we have some different options here. The first one we see is to simply create a quotation. Now, on the right-hand side, we have the margin panel, which is always going to show the work that's been done on this document. And so we just saved this quotation, and we now see this blue vertical bar here. And this is exactly indicating the size and location of a quotation here. And this is a free quotation because it has nothing else associated to it. We just saved this segment of the data. Now, if we do want to already capture our analysis as we're saving our quotations, we can go ahead and associate codes to the quotations. Now, a code is simply a word or a short phrase that's describing something we're seeing in the data. We can use codes purely for descriptive purposes, or we can use codes to synthesize an analytical point. We can really create any kind of code that we would like and as many codes as we would like. And perhaps another helpful way to think about the codes is to see them as simply tags that we're going associating to all the different quotations. So let's work through an example and let's see about this. I've highlighted another quotation, another segment of the text, right-click, and now I'm going to click Add Coding. Now ATLAS.ti opens this window for us where we can enter any code names that we want to associate to this quotation that we see here. And so the first thing that catches my attention is this concept of the headometer. So I'm going to make a code for headometer. And then I can see it's also talking about different discomforts. And so we see here an example already. And then, of course, rewarding aspects of having children. And so when we click on Add, ATLAS.ti has now saved this quotation for us and associated these codes. And so that's another way that we can conduct our analysis in ATLAS.ti by directly adding our codes. Now, as you're reading your interview transcriptions or articles, and imagine you come across something that your participant has expressed, and you want to capture their exact words. You love the way that they've expressed something, and you want to capture that in your analysis. Well, for this, you can use in vivo coding. And what in vivo coding does is it'll convert your selected text directly into a code. So for example, whenever we find a phrase that we want to capture for our analysis, so let's take this as an example. We just select that segment of the text, right-click, and code in vivo. And then ATLAS.ti has now converted this text into a code here. As we continue analyzing our data and associating codes, odds are that you're going to have some of these codes repeating. And so let's imagine here that we see again, this is talking about this concept of the headometer. And I already have that code created here. I don't want to create it again. Well, we can always easily associate any of our already existing codes as well. All we have to do is visualize our list of codes. So I go to the left-hand panel, click on Codes here, and here we can see all of the codes that are in this project. And so here we have that code of headometer, and in order to associate it to this quotation, all you have to do is drag and drop the code on top. and ATLAS.ti saves the quotation and associates the code. So we can also conduct coding in ATLAS.ti by simply dragging and dropping the codes from our list onto our quotations. And that's really the foundation of how we analyze data in ATLAS.ti. We save our quotations and we associate our codes. Now imagine I've just imported this article, and to be honest, I haven't even read it yet fully in depth. And before reading the entire article, I'd like to get a quick global overview of what this article is about. In other words, I want to conduct a content analysis. So if you want to see the frequency of words in any of your text documents, you can always use the word cruncher. So under the analysis menu, we have the word cruncher tool. Let's go ahead and click on it and see how we can use this. So on the left-hand side, we have our list of documents, and we just have to select the documents that we want to analyze here. So this is the document that we're working with right now, so I'm just going to select this one. And then the word cruncher, so it shows us all of the words in this document, the length of the word, and how many times it occurs, and what percentage this word makes up of the entirety of the document. Now, since ATLAS.ti is calculating every single word that it identifies, I'm going to reorder it instead of seeing it alphabetical order. I want to see the most frequently occurring words. And there we have it. We can easily remove any words from this list just by selecting them, right-clicking, and then adding it to our exception list, and ATLAS.ti will adjust the count, and so that we only see the words that are more relevant for our analysis. And so now we have a nice idea of what this author is talking about. So children and satisfaction, the word life comes up a lot, married, individuals. And so this is great. Now we have a global idea of what the content consists of in this article. If we wanted to, we could also continue adding more documents here. And then ATLAS.ti will sum together the word count of all these different documents. But down here, we also have the option to separate the counts by document. In which case, we can see the total number of times the word children occurred in all of these selected documents. But we can also see how many times it occurred in each of the individual documents. So that's another useful feature of the word cruncher. We can easily compare and contrast across all our different sources. If you want to save this table, by clicking on the button down here, Export Table, ATLAS.ti will open this in an Excel file for you. And then from there, you can continue editing it or conduct any quantitative analyses. And you can also create graphics if you want to have a pie chart or a bar chart. And then, of course, we could use that in our final report or presentation. So those are some of the ways that we can use the word cruncher. Now, going back to our example, I'm just going to go back to focusing on our one article here. And I can see that the word satisfaction is mentioned a lot. It's a very important concept in this article. But I want to see in what ways is the author talking about satisfaction. And so is the author talking about life satisfaction or the satisfaction of the parents' marriage or what? Let's see in what context this word is coming up. So I'm going to go back to the article. Now, to quickly and easily identify any word in any text document, you can always use auto-coding. What auto-coding will do, it'll search for any word that you are interested in, and then whenever it finds it, it'll automatically select a quotation for you and associate a code. So under the code menu, we have auto-coding. And now we just tell ATLAS.ti what word we wanted to search for, which code we wanted to associate here. So I have my code for life satisfaction. Here we have it. We tell ATLAS.ti what size quotation do you want it to create when it finds this word. Just to select the exact word, the full sentence or paragraph. I'm going to go ahead and select sentence in this case. And we can indicate the scope. Do you want it to just focus on this document or all of them, or a particular group of documents? Well, for now, I just want to focus on this one here. So let's go ahead and begin. I click Next, and then ATLAS.ti has already found the word, and it's highlighted the sentence for us. Now, it found the word in the title, and, well, I'm not very interested in coding the title, so I'm just going to click Next. We're going to move on to the next finding. Here we have the abstract, And so once again, I'm not so interested in seeing this or coding this. But now here we have an interesting quotation. And so this is definitely something I do want to save. So I'm going to click on code. So in this way, you can quickly and easily move through your entire body of text, and you can decide whether you want to code or skip any of the findings. And so you can quickly and easily identify where this word is coming up and in what context. If we click on Code All, ATLAS.ti will go ahead and code all of the findings or all of the matches for the word that we indicated. And now we can go through and just revise the quotations that ATLAS.ti has made. So for example, in this case, I found the word in a table. And well, if you want to delete this quotation, you can just right-click on the quotation and delete. And so then we can also adjust the auto-coding, and so we only have the relevant data for us. But auto-coding and the word cruncher are definitely really useful tools at the beginning parts of any analysis, so that you can just kind of get a quick idea of what's going on in the data. Now, I'd like to take just one little pause for a moment and comment on one final feature of the ATLAS.ti for Mac interface. As you've probably noticed, we have this bar here on the right-handmost side. This is the inspector panel. This panel will always show more information on whatever object you've currently selected. So right now, I've just clicked on the document, and the inspector panel is showing us. This is document number 35. We can see the title of the document. And the great thing about the inspector panel here is that we can easily edit any part of our project directly from here. So right now, I'm editing the name of this document to give it a more meaningful name for me. So I'm going to put the author and year and then what it's about. And so that way now, the name of the document will be changed throughout the project. We can see it up here as well. And so the inspector panel offers a really easy way to edit our information and stay on top of things. Below the title, we see a comment space. Now, every single individual object in ATLAS.ti has its own comment space. You can think of this as basically a sticky note that's going to always be associated to this particular object. So you can use the comment space to provide any additional contextual information on that object. So maybe to describe it or to remind yourself what exactly that particular thing is for or about. In the case of this document that we have here, since this is a scientific article, whenever you're working with articles or actually any secondary sources, we always recommend using the comment space to write out the full reference of that secondary source in whatever referencing style you use in your area. And so by doing so, then we'll always know exactly where this document came from. So just to show, if now we click on the code here, then the inspector panel is showing us the code. We can see the name. And again, we can still easily edit this if we wanted to. So just to show the example, we can edit this code name and ATLAS.ti updates that throughout the project. And of course, we have a comment space for the code. When it comes to writing comments on your codes, what we recommend in this case is to write the operational definition of this code. So to write out what exactly is this code referring to, and so that way you'll know exactly what it means, when it should be used, and so how you conceptually and operationally understand this code. This is a really important practice just for maintaining transparency in any qualitative study, and the comment spaces of the codes offer a great space to write out that information there, all the definitions of your individual codes. And so then below the comment space, we also can see all of the quotations that have been associated to this code, and we can see who's worked on this code and when. So ATLAS.ti also always saves your username, and it'll keep track of everything that you've done. Thanks to this, ATLAS.ti is also a great tool for any group work or working in teams, because you can have multiple people on the same project, but you'll be able to see who's done exactly what and when. So that's just a little bit about the inspector panel and how we can see more information on our different objects, and just so we understand what this panel is showing us, and as we click around, how the information is changing based on whatever we have selected. Now going back to our analysis here. So we've already seen how we can add our documents, read through them, code them, and then even take advantage of the word cruncher and auto coding to deepen our analysis. Now let's take a quick look at how we can analyze other types of data, such as videos or audio files. I'm just going to open our video that we have here. And so we can see that we can now directly view and we can watch and listen to the video directly from ATLAS.ti. And if you're working with audio files, it's going to be the exact same practice and it's going to have the exact same interface. The only difference is that you won't have this image playing in the center. So how do we analyze video or audio files? Well, we're going to do the exact same thing of selecting quotations and associating codes. To select a quotation of a video or audio, you have to select that segment of the video or audio that you want to save here. Just going to make sure we can see the full timeline here. So just along the right-hand side, we have the timeline of the video here, next to our margin panel. Whenever we want to save a segment of the video, we simply click, drag, and drop to select that segment. And ATLAS.ti has now saved this quotation for us. You can easily revise this segment by double-clicking on it, and ATLAS.ti will replay exactly that segment of the video. Now to add our codes, well, just as before, we can just right-click. We can even use the keyboard shortcuts as well if you prefer to work in that way. You can also use the buttons up here. So you may have noticed before I was just showing how to do things by right-clicking, but really in ATLAS.ti there's often several ways to do the same thing. And that's just to make it more comfortable for each person so you can work in the way you prefer. Whether it's using the buttons up here, right-clicking, or using keyboard shortcuts, any of these will work perfectly well, and so you can work in whatever way you prefer. I'm going to open up my list of codes here again, and I'll continue analyzing the video data here by just dragging and dropping my codes from the left-hand side. So just as we saw before. Now, if you're analyzing videos and you also want to analyze the visual aspects of the video and to go into more detail about what's going on here in the actual image that's playing, well, you have a very handy feature up here that you can create a snapshot of the video. By clicking on this, ATLAS.ti has now basically taken a screenshot of what we have paused on the video, and it's converted it into an image document. So let's go back to our list of documents here, and we see down here that we have a new document. By double-clicking it, we can open it, and now we have our image here. So how do we analyze images in ATLAS.ti? Once again, we're just going to select the segment, the quotation, and associate codes. To select any part of an image, just click, drag, and drop, and you see this rectangle appear, and you can move it around, resize it to get the part that you want. And then to save it, just as before, we can right-click, use the keyboard shortcut, or the buttons above. And then, of course, we can add any new code names, drag and drop our codes, and continue our analysis. Now remember, we can create as many codes as we want and as many quotations, and these can be as small or as large as we would like, and we can, of course, have overlapping quotations so that we can get as much detail as we would like in our analysis. Now, as we're analyzing all the data here, I'm having a lot of ideas go through my mind based on what we read from the article and what we're seeing in this family interview. And I wanna be able to write down everything that I'm finding. Whenever you want to write down anything in ATLAS.ti, you can use a memo. A memo is simply a notebook. It's a blank space in which we can write down anything that we would like. To create a new memo, just go to the plus button up here, and we'll click on New Memo. ATLAS.ti has now opened the new memo for us. We have this blank space where we can write and edit our text. Although first of all, I'd like to give this memo a more descriptive name. So I'm just going to go to the inspector panel here. And in this memo, I want to talk about this concept of the headometer, so what the author mentioned. And so now, We can use the memo to write our reflections, analyses, descriptions, any ideas or questions or doubts that we have. We can really use memos just to keep track of our work and already really analyze the data. I mean, memo writing is an important part of any qualitative analysis, and so it's good to get into this habit of writing all of our ideas down. And so now I could reflect on how Angelis spoke about the pedometer of happiness for raising children, and so on and so forth. But now, going back to this image that we were analyzing, it was particularly this family and how they're interacting that inspired me to write this memo. And I want to make sure that I always remember that this memo has to do with this quotation. Well, just as with our codes and our quotations, we can also associate any of our memos to our quotations. And to do that, as you may have already guessed, all we have to do is look at our list of memos and then drag and drop the memo on top of the quotation. And there we have it. So this is a really great feature because we can literally use memos to write out our analyses and the answers to our different research questions. And then we can associate these memos to our quotations, to the actual empirical evidences that are supporting our analysis. And so this is a great way to stay organized. And then later we'll take a look at how we can export all of this information with the click of a button, and then it greatly facilitates the final write-up of our paper. So besides associating memos to our different quotations, so imagine as I'm analyzing all this information, I'm writing in my memo what I'm finding, but I find it a bit uncomfortable to have to keep flicking through the different tabs here. I'd rather be able to look at both at the same time. Well, you can certainly visualize multiple screens at the same time. And all you have to do is click on the little plus button here, and then ATLAS.ti splits the screen, and you have a new one here. And then you just click drag and drop from the tab, whatever object you want to have on the other side. And now, of course, all of the panels in ATLAS.ti are adjustable. We can even hide these side panels if we wanted to, so that we can see our work better. And now we can literally watch the video and continue writing in the memo at the same time. So the interface of ATLAS.ti is very flexible so that you can use it in whatever way you prefer. Now that we've seen how we can analyze different types of data, how we can associate our codes and our memos, let's take a look at how we can export some of this work that we've done. Whenever you want to export any information, or also to organize these different parts of your project, you're going to open the manager of that object. So what I'd like to take a look at now is our list of codes. So I'm going to open the code manager. You can open the code manager from the code menu right here, but as well, we have this quick access or this shortcut right here. If we just click on the button, ATLAS.ti opens the code manager. So this goes for all of these 4 objects here. We have direct access to the manager by clicking there. So here we are in the code manager. And so what do we have? Well, our full list of codes. And for each code, we have more information on the right-hand side. We can see the groundedness of each code. How many quotations have been associated to this code? And we can see the density. How many links does this code have with any other code in the project? We'll see that in more detail when we take a look at the networks. We can see how many groups this code belongs to. So we can create groups for our codes, our documents, our memos for any part of our project, and that's a great way to organize them. If you take a look on the left-hand side of the manager, you'll see the full list of groups here. Continuing to the right, we can see the comments of this code, so that definition as we have written here, and we can see who's worked on it and when. Whenever you select a code, ATLAS.ti will show down below all of the quotations associated to this code. So you can also get a nice preview of all of the data that you found for each of your codes. And on the right-hand side, we have that inspector panel once again. And so we're already familiar with this and the different information that it's showing us, but it's a great way to easily edit the name or the comment of any of the objects. So one of the ways that we can organize our list of codes, as I've already pointed out, is by creating groups. So you can group together all of the relevant codes, and it's a nice way to, well, to keep everything organized, to keep track of what all the different kinds of subcodes of your project are. To group together any codes, all you have to do is select the codes you want to group together and then drag them over to the left-hand side. And when you let go, you can add a group name. So let's imagine these are the inductive codes of my project. Any code can belong to more than one group. So you can really create as many groups as you would like, and you can put your codes in as many groups as you need in order to organize the information. Another way in which we can organize our list of codes is by using prefixes. Prefixes are a great way to indicate the sort of hierarchy or structure among your codes. So we have this overarching code on the definitions of happiness, and this is a pretty broad code. I mean, there's a lot of ways that, a lot of things that could fall under this code. So we also have more specific subcodes. Definitions of happiness being about fulfillment, subjectivity, or a long-term view. And to show that these subcodes are a part of this code, we've just put the prefix here. And this is the same for all of the codes, as you can see in the list. To add a prefix, we simply just edit the name here, and then we'll have that added. And another great aspect of using prefixes for organizing our list of codes is that then we'll always see in our list all of the relevant codes together next to each other. ATLAS.ti is always going to show your code list in alphabetical order. And by using prefixes, we can take advantage of that. And so we make sure that all of the codes that are regarding the same concept are occurring together in the list. Now, finally, another way that we can organize our list of codes is by giving colors to our codes. We see the color wheel here, and just by clicking on the circle next to the code, we can give it any color that we would like in order to also keep our list organized and remember all of our different codes or what it's referring to. I mean, you can use these different features to organize your list of codes in whatever way you need for your project, but it's just so that we all know the different things that we can take advantage of here. Now, we initially came into the code manager so that we can actually see some of the data that we have regarding our different concepts. So let's imagine I'm at the part of my paper, of writing up my paper, and I'm talking about what we found on the different definitions of happiness. So I want to see all of the quotations that we found on the different ways of defining happiness. I'm just going to go ahead and directly select the group here, and then select all these codes, because that's what I'm interested in now. And we're going to export a report. We see the export button up here, and we actually have some different options for exporting this information. If we want to just the code list, so the codes and their definitions, if we want it as a table, or as a report. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and select on report. And so now we see on the left-hand side a preview of how this report is going to look. And on the right-hand side, we just tell ATLAS.ti what information we want included. So I want to see the quotations of each of these codes, and I want to see them in their full content. So you just check the information that you want included, and you can really go into as much or as little detail as you would like with these different drop-down arrows. We can also see any memos that have been added. We can see what we wrote in those memos, any other codes that have been added to these quotations. And so now we see here our first code. We see what documents it was used in, and it has 19 quotations, this code. So we see here the first quotation, just the short name, and then we see its full content. We can also see the other codes that were associated to this quotation. So this is just based on whatever information we have selected here. So I can just make this simpler just to see all the quotations associated to this code. And so now we can save this report as a Word or PDF file on our computer. And then when I'm writing up about the definitions of happiness, I don't even need to open ATLAS.ti again, and I don't need to go back into all of my data. I can just refer to the report that I've exported here. So exporting reports is a really useful feature. And with just the click of a few buttons, we have all this information put together for us in one single report. So we have all of the relevant things in one place. And then that really helps the analysis, and it's a great time saver. Now, one final note on the managers. All of the managers in ATLAS.ti have the exact same interface. So if we know how to use one of them, we'll know how to use all of them. So keep in mind that you can also organize your documents in groups. And in the same way like we saw before, just drag and drop. You can see more information on your documents from the manager. You can edit anything. And of course, also export those reports. So that's a little bit about the different managers in ATLAS.ti. Now, going back to our investigation of the definitions of happiness, I would like to continue seeing this in a bit more detail. And in fact, I'd like to explore this visually. I want to create a network about everything that we found on the definitions of happiness. To create a new network, just click on the plus button up here in the corner again, and now we select New Network. ATLAS.ti opens up our blank network space, and from the right-hand panel, we can change the name of the network. We can write a comment on the network. We want to describe what this network is about. And now, let's get to work with our network. So we just need to add some objects here. And what kinds of things can we add? Well, with ATLAS.ti, you can visualize any part of your project in a network. All you have to do is click and drag it from the left-hand side. So I'm going to start with the codes. Since we have our codes on the different definitions of happiness, I'm just going to drag and drop them in. And so remember before, when we talked about prefixes, we mentioned how these codes are subcodes to this overarching code. And I want to show this relationship in a hierarchy, to show this in a visual way. So to link any two objects, all you have to do is select one, and then from the little circle that appears in the corner, click, drag, and drop on top of the other object you want to associate it to. When you let go, ATLAS.ti gives you the possibility to name this relation, is part of. So I'm going to select that, because this code is a part of this overarching one. So you just click and drag from the little circle, and then you can name the relation. ATLAS.ti provides some relation names by default, but of course, you're welcome to use these, but of course you can also edit them, create any new relation names that you may want. So here we have it now, a very straightforward hierarchy showing all the codes related to the different definitions of happiness. Now, I'd also like to see some more information about these codes. I want to see their definitions. If we go to the view button up here, we have some more options for what kind of information we can have visualized in the network. And so if we want to see the comments of our codes, just click there, and now we can see all of the definitions of our codes. In addition to this, so about happiness being subjective here, I remember that I had some interesting data on that, but I don't remember exactly what it was that the participants said. I want to bring up those quotations again. To bring in any other quotations that have been associated or any other objects, just right-click on that code and go to Import Neighbors. A neighbor simply refers to anything else that's been associated to this object we selected here. And as I said, I particularly want to see the quotations. So now ATLAS.ti has imported all the quotations associated to this code for us. And where we see other links, that means that this quotation has also been associated to this code. So we have two codes on the same quotation here. So ATLAS.ti always remembers all of the work that we've done, and it'll show these relations as we add the objects to our network. Right now, we can just see the name of the quotation, but honestly, I'd like to see the full content of these quotations. So we just go to View and Show Quotation Previews. And there we have it. Now we can read each of the quotations. We can see the images, if we have image quotations here. And so now we can visualize all of the data that we found regarding happiness being subjective. We can even continue to analyze this data from the network, and we can link our quotations to other quotations. We can create hyperlinks. And so to also draw the relations across all of the data we have here. We can continue to link quotations to other codes. And remember, we can visualize any part of our network. So we can also add our memos and link these to our different quotations or our codes. If, let's say, this memo is related to our code here, we can view our memo directly from our network. And we can do the same with our different documents. So this is just an example of some of the ways that we can work with the networks in ATLAS.ti for Mac. And it's just to show how flexible this tool is. You can add whatever information you would like, and then you can use the network to draw the relations across everything, and then draw this global overview of what you found in your project. And then now we could save this network and then include it in our final report or presentation. And it's certainly a powerful way to present the findings from this work. Now, just to wrap up with the webinar for today, let's take a look at the different analysis tools that we can also take advantage of. So we're going to go back to the analysis menu here, and we already saw the word cruncher to analyze the frequency of words. Now let's take a look at the other tools we have here. First, the code co-occurrence table. With this tool, we're going to create a table where we're crossing our codes in rows and columns, and we're going to examine the co-occurrence between them. Co-occurrence simply refers to the coexistence of any two codes on the same quotation. So let's take a look through an example to see how can we understand this a bit better. So in this case, I want to examine the co-occurrence between all my codes related to the different effects of parenting. So about the negative effects and the positive effects. So you just select the codes that you want to have in columns and rows, and then ATLAS.ti generates the table for us. So what this is showing us is that this code co-occurs 4 times with this code. By clicking on the cell, ATLAS.ti shows the quotations down below where these two codes are co-occurring. If you want to revise any of these quotations, you can simply double-click on it, and then ATLAS.ti will open that quotation back in its full context. And so we can see here, we have the co-occurrence of those two codes. So going back to the table, well, how can we interpret this? So in what ways, what is this telling us, this co-occurrence table? Well, let's take a look at where we have a relatively high co-occurrence here. So between the code of the positive effect of personal growth, this code has co-occurred 13 times with the code about the negative effect of having more worries and stress and responsibilities. So this is something that I wouldn't have expected to see. That as parents were talking about having more worries and stress when having children, it seems that at the same time, in 13 different instances, they were also talking about this positive experience of having personal growth. Given that these two codes or these two concepts co-occur so frequently, perhaps there's some sort of underlying explanation for this. Is there some sort of relation between these two codes that's emerging from our analysis? So now what I would do is actually open up a memo and then write down my reflections in there of what I'm finding from this co-occurrence table. And well, perhaps one emergent finding that I could explore now is that in order for any person to experience personal growth, perhaps they have to undergo more worries and stress and responsibilities. And maybe this relation between these two concepts is what explains this whole investigation about the relationship between children and happiness. This is just one example of how we could interpret this, but it's just to show how we can use the co-occurrence table to identify these possibly emerging relations between all our different concepts. To save this table, we have once again the option right here to export this table to an Excel file. And so then we can work on it from Excel or create a graphic and include it in our final report or presentation. So that's the co-occurrence table. And finally, we have the code document table. With this tool, once again, we're going to be creating a table, but this time we're going to look at how many times our different codes occur in our different documents. So we can work with the individual codes, or we can already just work with the groups of codes, and the same goes for the documents. So we can see how many times the codes were used in the different parts of our project. So imagine I want to see Taking another closer look at the different positive and negative effects, I'm going to select these codes. But now I don't want to just see how many times they occur in the documents. What I actually want to do is compare how people responded, and I want to compare between my male participants and female participants. So we've already grouped together all of our participants from the survey, and we already grouped them according to their gender. So I'm going to just select the group instead of selecting the individual documents, and so we just select the groups here. And so now what this table is showing us is that this code has occurred 2 times in the documents in this group and 0 times in the documents in this group. So in other words, there are 2 instances in which the female participants talked about the negative effect of having less fun. Interestingly enough, the male participants didn't mention this. Looking at loss of freedom, well, we can see that the male participants talked about this much more than the female participants. So the code document table offers a great way to not only get a global overview of where in your project your different concepts are coming up, but we can also compare and contrast by taking advantage of all of our different groups here. So we can easily see between our male and female participants which kinds of effects did they talk more about. Down here, we also have some more options for editing this table. If we also want to see the totals to have global comparisons, we can switch the orientation if we want to. We can even see the relative counts to get a more accurate idea, or just to see in a better calculated way how the percentage of the occurrence of this code across these documents. And we can save this table, once again, by just exporting it to Excel, just by clicking on the button down here. And so that's the code document table, examining how many times our codes occur across our different documents. And with that, we've seen a global overview of ATLAS.ti for Mac. We saw how we can start a project and add our documents, and then analyze our documents by creating quotations, associating codes, and also associating our memos and writing out our analyses in them. We saw how we can organize our documents, codes, and all the different parts of our project, how we can export our results through the different types of reports that we can create, and then, of course, how we can use networks to visualize our findings and take advantage of the analysis tools to also continue interrogating our data. And so with that, I'll go ahead and conclude my part of the presentation. And I'll just put up here, once again, our contact information in case anybody would like to take a note. And if you ever have any questions regarding ATLAS.ti, please count on our support and we'll always be happy to help. And finally, if you do decide to purchase the software, remember that you can all count on that 10% discount coupon. Just send me an email and I'll send that right along.